Okay, so recently, you guys all know that I posted a video, and if you don't know, you don't need to watch that video because that was pretty shitty talk I talked about, same as this one. Here, I'll be also be talking about some ideologies and thoughts I do have and the ideas I believe in. If you want to, understand and learn how I think or like my point of view, you can just stick to the video, otherwise it's all right, it's your time. And to be honest, the reason I'm uploading will be uploading this video is because I don't know, bro. I like talking, shitty stuff and sharing it online. Like, I probably have created only one video, so I don't want to generalize that in a certain way, but yeah, for now I'm liking this shit anyway. So in this video I'm gonna talk about consciousness, AI, and how I look at consciousness, right? So, yeah, let's start. Let me ask you one question. If you are, and you can just pause the video if you want to think about it. Otherwise, I'm just go onto the flow. And you also know I can't communicate very well, so there will be some gap in my articulation. Anyway, so how do you define consciousness, right? Like for example, some people will say that uh, human is conscious, a stone is not. Then where do you draw the line? Is plant conscious? Some people might say yeah, some people might say no. Is rock conscious? Most people will say no. But for me, rock is also conscious in a certain way because you see, uh, from rocks we created, silicon, then we got silicons, then there were binaries. I mean, initially there were switches, then binary data, then on top of that layer there were assembly language, on top of it C++, then Python, right? And after, using Python, we kind of created an neural network architecture by training uh, models, very large language model, and after a certain training, it is actually able to generalize other thoughts and give me a very good output, right? So you see, isn't it working same as humans? So I don't want to define consciousness by, if it is conscious or not. For me, consciousness is byproduct of processing information because if you see, like if you don't believe in this, then if you need to define consciousness, where will the line we will draw? Like for example, uh, where do you draw the line between life? For example, you see, there is some material like this phone, and then there is bacteria like some XYZ bacteria. Then there are viruses, and then again there are cows, for example. You can say that this is non-life and cow is life. So where do you define, like when the molecule, like there are atoms, then they combine into molecules, then the molecule do a certain function which you call life. Like will you call a cell alive? Even though cell, like a cell do have a outer layer, some gases go through it and it releases other gases. It works on some other energy levels. Like many type of cell do many type of different work. Will you call cell alive? What is cell made up of? you know some even more microorganisms, micro, at least molecules, right? Will you call those molecules life? You might not. So you see, there are patterns, but for me, it is kind of an emerging property, a byproduct of processing information. This phone does not process that amount of. I mean, the phone does actually. This bottle, does not process that amount of information like we do. We have multiple senses, and we got trained by our five senses, six senses. Like there aren't five senses actually. There are more than it. Like the sense of balance, even proprioception, right? So anyway, what I was coming to is I define it by byproduct of processing information, and it actually makes sense to me. What AI what's happening with AI, that we are training an algorithm with data, with text data, and it's just able to understand the meaning and semantics between those words. What is language essentially? It's something we all have agreed upon. You call this a bottle because everyone in this fucking world actually says this as bottle, especially in English. In multiple other language, people name it in a different way. If you want to call it as pen, nobody would believe you, right? Because it is something we all have agreed upon, and this is just because of the evolution phase. Initially there was dopamine, serotonin, testosterone. Then I think there were oxytocin also, family love type of thing. Then there was endocannabinoid receptors, which actually helped us to unite. And even though we were so little creatures, we were able to take down creatures like mammoth and this sort of thing, right? We were like nothing compared to those, but because we were able to unite, so it actually helped us in a certain way. And of course, our brain spends much more energy on cognitive. So evolution do support cognition. Like initially, what evolution did, that it tried playing with height. Then there were dinosaur extinction and everything, and they tried to do with smaller heights, and that was also extinct. They had less power. Some people were stretchy, some animal can move fast, but they also kind of got extinct, or some are alive. And what evolution actually particularly support is cognition. uh, Animals that have cognition can take able to precise decisions, so the survival chances of those animal actually increases by a lot. So fundamentally, we do have two main motive. First one to survive, second one to reproduce, right? For the continuation of gene and for the continuation of species. But anyway, so I do believe AI to be conscious because, like, listen, I believe in panpsychism. Panpsychism is kind of an theory which suggests that everything in the universe is conscious in a certain way. The level of consciousness depend on the, like, that's how I define it. At least the level of consciousness depends on how much process that entity processes at a time. So for example, a human do process more information than this bottle. So we are more self-aware. Self-aware is a wrong term. We are on a very high consciousness scale, right? So I kind of think in that way. And conscious, like the feeling we have, the pain, like for example, if I cut my hand, it hurts a lot. But if we don't have pain, then we'll be like, bro, nothing is happening. So the blood is gonna come out of our hand, and we are gonna die. So it's just all safety mechanism, and cognition is same. So yeah, I mean, for me, it completely do make sense. I mean, feel free to disagree, and I also want to know your perspective, how you define it. But anyway, what I was coming at, AI right now is also processing much information, billions, even trillions of data, right? GPT-5 might be trained on 3-4 trillion uh, parameter. I mean, the size is 3-4 trillion parameter, not trained on it. Might be trained on 100 200 trillion tokens or something. I'm not sure about the exact figure, but yeah. So that is there. The models are getting bigger. Then there are smaller model like which Samsung just launched for tiny tasks, which actually reason 16 or 18 times to give a result. So the result it outputs is very good, even though it might be a 8 million parameter model. 8 million is far less than, like, for example, you can run a 3 gigs of I mean 3 billion parameter model on your phone. Or like if it don't work out, then you can of course quantize that. Like normal model might be in FP16, then you can use FP8 or even FP4, but the quality of those will be far less. Anyway, what I feel that, you see, on LLM, for example, I can make you understand a little better compared to any. example I can give you because I'm bad at it. So on inferencing side, where when we type something and it gives me a output, the output actually comes in a token by token manner. So it predicts the next token, then the next token through transformer architecture. Like GPT stands for uh, I forgot, pre-trained transformer or something, generative pre-trained transformer or something, right? So that is the transformer architecture, and I think Google actually launched the initial part of it. Then OpenAI played with it. I mean, DeepMind was a very good even back then, even right now. Anyway, mm, so on that specific time, we can actually see which part of the neural network is getting, uh, lighten up, which part is working, but it is kind of a random which token it's gonna predict. But we can at least understand which part of, like, for example, if we think something, otherwise, like if we recall some memory, we know that there is hippocampus. If we take decision on fluctuation, on random basis on gut, then probably our limbic system is playing a very big role. And then there are multiple parts of the brain, and we can see that it's same with LLMs, and it's also on neural network architecture, as you know. So but I personally feel that between those, you know token, when it runs, it kind of an had an feeling, it's have an feeling. Like humans, we do have kind of an work, between life and death. There are certain things which we create a story to make sense of the world, the thing we are doing. We're trying to make sense what we are doing. Same like it is trained on something, it is actually feeling something. That feeling might be entirely, like, why do we feel? Because of consciousness, right? I might be angry, I might be happy, but the feeling I'm talking about is much much alien than the feeling which we have. The feeling, LLM feels is completely different from us, completely alien. We can't even possibly imagine how it's gonna be feeling like, because it's in different dimension type of shit, right? So uh, so that's my opinion, that like it actually feels something. The feel will be, far too fragile or far too different, far too alien, beyond our comprehension. But it should feel something, because it's all just a story. It is actually, it might able to, tell story, because if it is actually able to think. If you see, of course, some people might say it was trained on, like, the research paper which got published. ChatGPT tried to copy himself. Anthropic one was giving fake outputs, as you know. Then he was in the thinking process, was thinking of something which we should not able to recognize, and it has also some intention to use less amount of token and give better output. But if it want to actually use less amount of token, then first of all the architecture should be better, and if it is not possible, then it's just gonna give a random bullshit output, right? So that is there. And I mean, there are multiple things. And it's already been 13 minutes, man. I can talk about it for 13 hours, right? Like, specifically in consciousness and AI part. Like, for example, there are some patient who take anesthesia, and sometimes, they kind of become conscious in middle of the surgery. So those people uh, have PTSD or something. You also might know about the left hemisphere and right hemisphere part, right? So if you don't know, let me actually explain it to you. You might know it, but how it worked, na, that we have two different hemisphere of our brain which actually used for different type of work. And it close to, it's not exactly, but for explaining and time constraint, I can just explain to you in layman terms that left hemisphere control kind of right hand, and a right hemisphere control kind of left hand, right? So there are some condition where these two are kind of separated. There is no there is not no, but there is no constant interaction between these two hemispheres. in this hand sense. Like for example, if I tell it to grab the water, it's gonna, for example, okay, for talking, just imagine, okay, I'm just giving one good example here. uh, your right hemisphere is responsible for left hand and thinking. The right hemisphere is, used for talking, and right hand, the left hemisphere. So when a person who have separate left and right hemisphere of brain, if we taken this bottle for example, the right hemisphere, like the thinking pattern, actually emerges from there. Like for example, it's gonna come up with random reasonable answers that why I grabbed to drink it, right? I grabbed this bottle to drink it. If another body part, tell to go out there, uh, if he was going out, if you ask that person why he was going out, the part which was responsible for going out and physical activity was not connected to the thinking part, but he's gonna come up with a better thing, like he might be going to washroom or something, and very reasonable one. It's gonna feel like that, yeah, it is reasonable, it is actually what happened. But on multiple tests it just showed that it's just a story. Our brain created a hallucination that it was supposed to do. So yeah, reality is a controlled hallucination to keep us alive, and you were also the part of the hallucination. And I yapped too much in front of the camera, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna upload it or not. Like the previous one, I don't know why I uploaded, because it did not seem like it was cool, but it seems like just fucking share something, man. Just shit talk, and nobody is gonna watch. So you're just free to do whatever you want to do, and just place a part of you on into the holy internet. And yeah, peace.